Hi everybody. I've got the wrong countdown on the screen, so disregard that. The gong will go off early. But hi, I'm Debbie Levitt from dcx. I'm using my old microphone again. Let me know if it's too loud, too soft, or if anything sounds weird about it. But welcome to our usual Tuesday show, which is Q&A AMA. And this is your chance to get some free mentoring, coaching, advice from me, to ask me anything you'd like to ask me. All questions are welcome. I'm going to turn on a fan next to me. Let me know if that's loud. And of course, you can send in questions ahead of time if you'd like at dcx.to. That's also where you'll find all kinds of, every question you have is answered at that link. It's got my new courses. There's a new secret course I'm working on that's not there yet, but all the other courses are there. We even had a sign up today for Product Market Fit. Thank you so much. So join the courses. And as always, I want to take a moment while you send in your questions to thank our paid Patreon members and our free Patreon members. You can join the paid Patreon for as little as $1 a month, which just helps support me, or you can join for free. And either way, you're going to get early access to stuff and other perks. So I hope to see you there. We don't have any questions ahead of time today. If we don't get any questions soon, we can wrap it up and call it a summer day where people are just thinking about other things. But if you have something that you want to ask, you can put it in the chat. It will come up on the screen with your name, so you might not want to talk about how terrible your job is. Up to you. The other questions come in anonymously, so you can always follow the link from dcx.to and send an anonymous question. So I don't see any questions yet, but emojis up. Who's here? I don't know who's here till you tell me you're here. I don't get like a list of attendees. This isn't Zoom. So who's here? What are you up to? How's your summer, or whatever season this is for you? Okay, well, we'll hang out for a few minutes and we'll see if anybody joins. And if not, I'll be here next week to answer your questions. If I get questions when I am not here live, they get saved and they'll be among the first questions I answer next week. If you are mid-level or higher, you can always send in your question through our Discord and you get priority attention. But that, of course, is also optional. So maybe I'll log into LinkedIn on my phone and see if I'm missing anything there. Sometimes I don't see the questions. Nope, LinkedIn is live. And I don't see any questions. 10 people are watching. Hey, 10 LinkedIners. Anybody have any questions for me? These are no charge, and you can ask anything, even if you think it's, doesn't have to be a genius question. It can be an easy question. It could be a difficult question. I am here to support you. So what do you want to know? Guess we'll let this run a few more minutes, and if we don't have a question, say in the next 3 minutes, I'll just wind it down for today. But of course, I will be back next week, just in case people have questions. Usually the summer gets pretty quiet, and so do the holidays, but we'll do it anyway. Don't forget, Monday, I have a webinar coming up on findings versus insights versus actionable suggestions when you are doing your research, analysis, and synthesis and reporting. So we'll be discussing that on Monday. That will be 8 p.m. Italy time, 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. New York time on Monday, live here. Then that'll go to Patreon paid members for 2 weeks, and then it'll be available to everybody. So we'll give it 2 more minutes. See if anybody has any questions. All questions are welcome. I don't think we've had an unwelcome question yet, but you never know. Don't forget to stay hydrated. I'm here for you. If you have no questions, I have no answers. So if I can help anybody, please say something. Otherwise, it's just me. And since this is on YouTube, I can't start singing because I'll get a copy strike. So you're going to have to go with not singing and me just doing this, hoping someone has a question. But, if nobody needs my help this week, that's cool too. Carly Grace is here. How are you doing? All right, so let's put this question on the list so that it'll go in the YouTube description later. Thank you, Carly Grace, who says, what do you think about deceptive design patterns that are becoming more obvious and maybe more common in apps and websites? There's not a lot to that I can say about that. I'll also work on getting the question up on the screen, though it's in the wrong place and I'll have to move it. This to me simply goes back to ethics. That's really the bottom line. Do we have ethics at our company? Do we care about these things? Do we have company values that guide us or ethics that guide us? And if not, then typically someone feels it's okay to do deceptive design patterns that will trick people or surprise them or push them into things they didn't want to do. And so I think that they're usually terrible, and Harry Brignall wrote a nice book about them, so check out his book, Deceptive Design, #not sponsored. It was a good book. But I think we have to kind of take a look at why. Why are these things happening? Why do we have these? Why do teams do this? Why do leaders allow it or request it? And again, to me, it comes down to ethics, and it comes down to quality not being at the center of what we do. If we really want to put quality and customer experiences and customer outcomes at the center of what we do, then to me, some of the deceptive design could be a short-term win, but it's usually a long-term loser. Either because you get sued and you're in some sort of trouble for something you did, so whatever wins you had don't pay off because you get in trouble, or because customers become wise to whatever game you're playing. You break trust with them. They don't trust you. They don't want to come back or buy again or renew a license. And so it's really very risky because, again, very often deceptive design patterns are aimed at winning over a customer, as in winning for the business over what the customer is trying to do or what the customer or user wants for themselves. And if that's the way your company wants to do things, then we have to start asking questions about quality and value. And hold on, let me pull up my effects so I can say everyone's favorite word. Hold on. Let's roll that back. Quality and value and empathy. So Carly says, the book is on my list. I ask because in responsible gambling, where Carly works, I believe in Norway, was it? I see so many articles about user friendliness, ease of use, but those things can lead to deceptive design, and no designers are talking about responsible gambling. Yeah, responsible gambling, as Carly Grace already knows, is a complicated topic because on the one hand, there's something that you hope people will do. You kind of hope they will gamble, but at the same time, if it's responsible gambling, then you don't want people to gamble money they can't afford to lose, and you don't want gambling to become an addiction or a problem in their life. So it's hard because you want them to do the thing, but you don't want them to do the thing in an unhealthy way. And not everybody who gambles is doing it unhealthily. So, where is that line? So when we think about user friendliness and ease of use, Certainly, hypothetically, we want things to be easy. If this is a gambling website, we want it to be easy to gamble. We want it to be easy to understand how much money have I put into the system? How much money can I take out of the system? Maybe how much money have I won or lost, or things like that. Whatever the user needs to know for them to understand their own situation. So, but the question is, when does user friendliness lead to deceptive design, and especially in something like gambling? I hope Carly Grace will tell us, because I get the feeling she knows something that I don't, because she usually does, especially when it comes to gambling and responsible gambling, as that's not an area of my expertise. But I think that we have to think about what we're talking about is user friendliness with boundaries, because it's not that we want to make a user unfriendly site or a high friction site or a difficult site, but we are trying to put in some sort of guardrails or guides or boundaries so that people who may have a gambling problem have some sort of oversight or something like that. I don't know how responsible gambling works. I don't know if the system tries to time people out after time or money in the hopes that this is not addictive. I don't know if the system tries to warn people about an amount of money they've bet or lost. So we have to think about what would be user-friendly to people without a gambling problem, like me. I've never been an addictive personality. I'm the person who walks into a casino with $20, and if I win $1, I cash out and leave, because I go, that's it, I beat the casino. I'm up $1, I didn't lose, I'm out of here. And I can do that. And so, but then there are going to be other people, and it's a spectrum, of course. Other people who will play longer. Sometimes I'll go into a casino with $20 and I play it down to nothing. And then I go, oops, oh well, that was a fun hour or two. And so there's a whole spectrum there. At what point might a system think that Debbie has a problem, or Debbie needs boundaries, or we're pushing Debbie in the wrong direction? These are things that are not my expertise. Carly Grace will know this, and our friend Karen will know this as well. Carly Grace says the boundaries you just mentioned are what's important. There's a lot of gambling companies, especially based in Malta, who just want easier and addictive, but others with boundaries and tools help. The problem is making them visible and in the customer journey, which many do not do or know how. Yeah, and that's why this is a spectrum. There's a spectrum of people who, to me, it's about the susceptibility. How susceptible is someone to a gambling problem or a potential gambling problem or an already existing gambling problem? Like, reportedly, my grandfather had a gambling problem. I was too young to be told about that, so I don't know about it. And I'm the grandchild. I don't have that. I just don't, for whatever weird reason, I don't have an addictive personality. I think that's part of it, but that's just my guess. I'm not a psychologist. I'm sure there are other factors that go into what can make gambling draw you in and be addictive. So it's really about creating those boundaries, and I think Carly Grace is right in that we have to take a look at those customer journeys. Do we have a customer journey for a Debbie type of person who's unlikely to get addicted, but do we have a customer journey that watches for behavior changes in Debbie, where maybe she starts looking addicted, or she starts looking like she has a problem? Because things can change in people's lives at any moment. If I had some sort of financial catastrophe, I might think maybe gambling is a quick answer to solve that, because if I can place this bet and win, I'll get some money back. So just because I don't have a problem right now doesn't mean I'll never have a problem. And so how do you watch for those behavior changes? Or, as we've been talking about on this channel a week or two ago, you can look up my show on behavior triggers. How do we set up behavior triggers that start to tell us this person could have a problem, this person needs more guardrails or boundaries? And so I think understanding some of those journeys and not looking at it from the perspective of a persona, but more from the perspective of like Larry Marine in Disruptive Research talks about user profiles, or I talk about behavioral typologies, because both of these imply a fluidity. It's not like Debbie is persona number one and she's always going to be persona number one. Well, maybe persona number one is a light gambler who doesn't have any sort of gambling problem. But if something were to drastically change in my life, and for some reason I thought gambling was the answer, maybe I find myself in persona 3, 4, 5. And so there's a fluidity here. And I think that's what systems might want to watch for if they want to be responsible gambling systems versus gambling systems just going for the greatest facilitation of the gambling and of the taking of people's money. Carly Grace, is that going in the direction you were hoping it would? Does that kind of answer your question or take the discussion in the direction you were hoping? If not, let me know, and we can talk about it more in some other way. But thank you for bringing up an interesting and of course complex topic, which is, responsible gambling is so weird. For some people that sounds like two opposite words, like responsible drinking. Okay, well, there is responsible drinking and irresponsible drinking. And, how do we make sure any person in any particular moment is hopefully in that responsible bucket? So yeah, I think it's about customer journeys, but it's also about some sort of profiles or typologies, and understanding that people can fall into different typologies at different times. Carly Grace says, yeah, a bit for sure. There is deceptive design everywhere, but I think it's good that people know more about it. Yeah, I think these are conversations we have to have as part of our conversations about quality and about ethics, because we can always say, hey, look, an easy user interface is a quality experience. Let's make it easy. But you have an interesting mission in that the mission of where you are is to, allow people to gamble, but to try to keep them from anything damaging or dangerous or whatever. And so it's an angle that we don't see very much from companies, where they're really saying, look, these are our ethics, or this is our mission, and we know that we don't have to do this, and we could just make it much easier to gamble and to take people's money, but balance is going to be better. Allowing people to gamble with these boundaries would be better than zero gambling or unlimited gambling. Like, there's just got to be some finding the right mode for people. So again, I have a skewed perspective on this as a non-gambler and a bit of a math head who knows that I'm unlikely to beat the casino, and I go in assuming losing, and sometimes get surprised. I got surprised on a cruise ship a year or two ago, playing my usual $20 on like a video roulette or something, and I happened to hit on a number, and I got a decent amount of money on a small bet. I was betting like $1, so you get $35, and I hit cash out, and the person next to me looked at me funny, and I'd heard him speaking Italian, so I said in Italian, if I win, I leave. So, but what about all the not me's? Those are the people who might need our help. And then you have the complicated issue of how do you help someone who's not asking for help? How do you help someone who might not want that help? It's super complicated, and it's always great that we have people like Carly Grace, trying to shepherd us these complicated issues. So if anybody has any follow-up questions, please ask. If you have a question on a completely other topic, please ask. I'll wait a few minutes and see if anybody has any questions. Hey, Ader. Always good to see you. Or envision you in my head, because I don't see you, but I envision you. I envision people's LinkedIn pictures when I see their names. So like, I see Carly Grace in my head, I see Ader in my head. It's always a hair competition for me and Ader, I think. So, Ader, I don't know if you're in the Epica Patreon, but they announced today that they got the first rough mixes for the next album. Do you know the release date on that? Oh, I'm too excited. I don't know if you're watching this as closely as I am, but I'm excited. I think I listen to Omega every day. I can't imagine how sick my husband must be of Omega and me singing it. It's the official album of shower singing and watering the garden singing and everything singing. Yeah, so anyway, it's Tuesday and it's Ask Me Anything. So you have the absolute power and right to ask me anything. Hello, 11 people on LinkedIn. I'm not looking at how many on YouTube. Ader says that's going to be epic. Yeah, literally. I don't know. I don't remember the release date. I am not excited about Simone's solo album just from the first 2 songs. And then I didn't want to hear the third song because I don't want to hear a song about AI taking over the world. It hurts. But I didn't love the first 2 songs and I like her. So, oops. So I'm looking forward to Epica. And I was excited that Marcella is one of the background singers again. I love Marcella. Yeah. Okay. We're talking heavy metal, prog goth metal with Ader in Brazil. But if you have a question about anything that I'm qualified to speak to, please ask your question. All questions are welcome. There is no charge. You do not have to be in a special club. I might pronounce your name incorrectly. All questions are welcome. So if there's something you've always wanted to ask me or you've been wanting to ask somebody and you don't know who to ask, I'm here for you. I've even turned off the air conditioning for you because people used to complain about the sound of the air conditioning into this mic. How's this mic sound, by the way? I haven't used it in months. I haven't used it since February for reasons I won't go into, but nothing to do with the mic. The mic's been fine. How's it sound? Do I need to change anything about it? Too hot, too cold, too snippy? So that's it. Yeah, and the countdown number's all wrong. Sounds good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I do want to use it more. I think it's got a nice warm sound, but it picks up a lot of room noise. I don't know if you hear the fan running next to me because it's hot in here, and I turn off the air conditioning because people complained about the sound. Anyway, we'll give it a couple more minutes. Excuse me, if nobody has any other questions, we'll wrap up today and just call it Carly Grace Day. But if you have a question, I am happy to take it. So please ask it. And don't forget, I've got new courses coming up. I am writing them right now. That is how fresh they are. I've got a course on public speaking and writing. I've got a course on product market fit. And I'm working on a course on planning qualitative research. And then as of this morning, I'm working on a new secret course that isn't on that page yet. It's going to be a surprise, so I'm not announcing it yet. And I will also have a big announcement later this month when my new book will be published. And it is a children's book about my dogs. So if you have kids, if you know kids, this is for younger kids. Hey, Florian, how are you? Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm here to take questions. People don't have any, so if there's any topic you want to talk about, type it out, bring it up. Let's put it out there. Otherwise, I'll give it a few more minutes and then we'll just wrap up for today. And let's see, I've got a light schedule for the summer because I'm writing so much. But let's see, Friday, we've got the support group call. I don't know if anybody live now is in our support group. You can check it out at dcx.to, currently free to join. Yeah, I'll be there. We do this kind of thing, except sometimes people say more stuff. They open up a little more. Yeah, and don't forget, as I'm looking behind the scenes, don't forget that we've got a Slack and a Discord. They're a little quieter than they used to be, but you're all welcome there as well. There's no charge for either of them. I do have a question. I need time to phrase it. Okay, and you're in YouTube, which is only going to give you 200 characters at a time, so you can certainly send it through dcx.to. There's a link there, and but there you go. Oh, okay, you can write it here as well. Totally fine. I read some time ago on LinkedIn that you were against, in air quotes, design thinking. Yeah, no air quotes needed. It is true. Would you mind expanding on this and explain why? Yes, but I'm going to ask you, what is your definition of design thinking? Because we did a show, episode 108, over on the Delta CX channel, so you can go to YouTube and look up Delta CX 108. And we kind of, it was one of the funniest episodes we ever did, but we talked about how many different definitions there are of design thinking. And so if I say I'm for it or against it, which definition am I for or against? Which version? So that's why before I address that type of question, I like to get a sense of what is someone's definition of it, so we can see maybe we have similar definitions or different definitions, and that kind of helps me kind of position my response. So while I get your question ready and up on the screen, let me know, what is your definition of design thinking? Paste. Overlay number 4. So while we wait for Florian's definition of design thinking, yep, take your time, I'll start. So depending upon your definition of design thinking, sometimes, though it's quite rare, someone believes design thinking is exactly the same as full and complete human-centered design, user-centered design, that we want to do a good and thorough process of generative research and content strategy and information architecture and interaction design and prototyping and usability testing and iterating and all kinds of research and design and other specialized tasks in an organized process that is, could vary in its length, but that we're usually going for something on the deep and more quality-oriented side. Some people say that's the definition of design thinking. If that is your definition of design thinking, where it's very thorough, looking for my graphic, human-centered design or user-centered design, I think this is my graphic, then yes, I wouldn't be against that. I just wouldn't want to call it design thinking, because it's not just about thinking. It's about, there's so much doing in there that it's not just about thinking. It's not just about a mindset or a couple of steps or a fun workshop. So if your definition of design thinking is full human-centered design, then I would say please call it human-centered design. Don't call it design thinking. Please call it what it is. We'll get to Ader's question after this one. Thank you, Ader. Let's put that on the list. Okay, it's on the list for after. Very often, however, design thinking is defined as some sort of very small, short, fake version of UX, where we're just going to get together in some workshops or exercises, and we're gonna, as a team, try to figure out what users need and brainstorm solutions. It's very solution oriented. And very often it lacks a lot of quality in the process. In an effort to be fast and look almost like a design sprint, where we're just spending hours or days on this, we sacrifice quality. We very often people go into design thinking or design sprints not understanding target audiences, not understanding their tasks or behaviors. Carly Grace was just talking about companies who probably don't even have a journey map, don't understand their users, or might even want to see their users do something bad. So it's easy to go into design thinking and try to turn stuff into a fun workshop, but I'm old enough to remember when my work wasn't that. I'm old enough to remember when I was hired for my skill and expertise and abilities to find and solve problems, and none of that included workshopping. None of that included Crazy Eights or How Might We, because How Might We is ridiculously focused on we. When we're supposed to be focused on the user, it's somehow all about we. I don't get it. So I think that one of the many problems with design thinking, in addition to it having what seems like 5,000 definitions, is that it seems to be an attempt at a short and small fake version of UX work. It has taken out all of the quality, it has taken out all of the rigor, and in many, but not all, but in many cases, it just ends up looking like, let's just run some fun workshops and brainstorm solutions. But solutions to what? Florian says, a bit of context. I'm new to UX design. My education mostly exists of books and online readings. Yeah, so you're going to see a lot of design thinking, especially the short versions, being passed off as UX, and they're just not the same. They're just not. Design thinking was sold to us as something that if we brought into companies, it was really going to help people collaborate and help people get into design, and it's ended up to be very much not that. I think the best way to go is for you to look up video number 115. So there's a video, just go into YouTube and type dcx 115, and that one's got chapters. It's one of my rare ones with lots of chapters, and what you'll see is I go through a bunch of popular methods or books, and I say, you know, here's what's wrong with design thinking, here's what's wrong with design sprints, here's what's wrong with lean UX. And it is a long video, but if you really want my answer to that, video 115 is your best bet. Ader says, I just saw a phrase that I think works for a lot of stuff lately. Scrum is like soccer, 90 minutes of people running around and sometimes something happens. Carly Grace, do you have a list of UX books that should be avoided? That's an interesting one. So let's put up Ader's question, and then we'll put Carly Grace's at the end. When I think about design thinking, I think about what was taught in the UX Design Foundation. Understand, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Yes, except how did you do any of those things? How did you understand? Very often in design thinking, not always, but very often you're told, what do you think users do? We know our users. What do we think users do? We don't stop and do the right research that will help us know what users do. So understand is usually glossed over. It's usually, oh, let's all get together in a workshop, and it's more from the business perspective. We wish people bought more stuff. Why do we think they're not buying more stuff? People start making up reasons, and they call that understand. But is that really understand? I would challenge that, because I would challenge assumptions, opinions, guesses, anything that's not good evidence, data, and knowledge that comes from relatively recent qual research. Then you've got things like define. What are you defining? Are you defining something you understand well? You're supposed to be defining the problem, but are you defining a business problem? Sometimes you go into these things and the problem definition is the business wants people to buy more stuff. And I go, what about what the users want? Well, and then people get flustered. They go, but we need to raise conversion rates. And I go, cool. Do we understand why users aren't converting as much? That'll give us a better chance at improving or solving this. And then people go, no, that's not why we're here. We're just here to get users to buy more or buy more often. So all of these steps of design thinking don't guarantee quality of the process or any of this type of quality. Florian says, I do what I call continuous research with my users, where I'm able to map some current process and start conversations with my team and zero in on current issues. Yeah, I mean, the continuous research is also questionable, because if you're going with Teresa Torres's version, then I'm against that as well. But if you're doing really good observational and interview research with current customers and your target audience, then you're more likely to understand the users, to understand their tasks, unmet needs, perspectives, decisions, collaborators, and that way you can define real problems for them and not guessed at or assumed problems or stereotyped problems. Florian says, I work for back office applications. My end users are employees. Yeah, but we still don't want to make assumptions about these people. We want to learn it from them, especially from watching them. You can't beat the observations and being a detective doing those observations. So the problem with design thinking is that it tries to take user-centered design and human-centered design and boil it down. Instead of research, we're going to call it understand. Okay, but did you really understand? Where'd you get the information? How do we know these things? Very often, we made it up. Then we're going to call it define. Well, that would be part of research. You know, are we defining a problem based on research or based on guesses and assumptions? And then ideate. Okay, well, that's designing solutions, but do we understand the people and the problem and the context and the systems and the technology and the tasks and the habits and the perspectives and the mental models, etc.? So that's where design thinking and I tend to break apart. Design thinking makes it look like it's really easy to do UX work. Just get everybody together and say you understand users and figure out their problems. But a lot of times there's just too much risk, too much guessing, assuming, and opinions that make it into design thinking, and that can lead to a lot of risk and waste and bad outcomes. So there you go. So let's switch over to Ader's question. Would you say that there's any major differences when conducting, thanks Florian. And again, episode 115, which has chapters, you can easily jump around it. Please watch that. Ader says, would you say that there's any major differences when conducting user research for an internal product versus an external product? I feel like we just got this question. Or was it someone said B2B versus B2C? In general, no. The main differences in that type of research is mostly going to be the recruiting, because whether they're internal or external users, I still want to observe them. I still want to talk to them. I still want to learn about all the things I've just been saying. Habits, perspectives, unmet needs, problems, what could be improved, what's working for you, Larry Marine stuff, tools, knowledge, workarounds, cognitive load. I want to learn all of that stuff, whether they're internal users and coworkers like Florian's got, or they're outside people, maybe they're business customers or consumer customers. So the only difference tends to be for an internal product, we have to recruit from inside our company. We can't have Debbie and her husband be the usability tester for the product because they're not the end user. They're not the target audience. And so in order to research or test with the target audience, you've got to find people who are essentially your coworkers or also work at the company, anybody who would be using this thing. Sometimes you're building something for a very small group of users and you have to reuse the same people over and over. That's not a best practice, but we're sometimes stuck doing it in that sort of internal enterprise environment. But to me, the main differences are just going to be where you got these people, because you're not going to go fishing outside of your coworkers or user base to test, whereas somebody like Shopify can say, well, go find me a bunch of people who sell online who don't use Shopify so we can learn more about them. It won't be the same for an internal product. I hope that helps. And let's go with, let's find Carly Grace's interesting questions. question. Let me put it on my list, and now let's get it on the screen. All right, Carly Grace says, do you or anyone you know have a list of UX books that should be avoided? I do not know of anybody who has a list of books to be avoided. However, I do have something that falls into that bucket. I wrote an article called The Continuous Discovery Habits of Inspired Lean Startups and Lean UX Sprints. Gestures broadly. So while I don't know of anybody who has specifically put out a list saying, look, these books stink for these reasons, I'm comfortable saying that based on my own opinion, and your opinion may be different. And we've got an anonymous question coming in. Thank you. I believe that some poor choices for books are going to be Lean Startup, Lean UX, Continuous Discovery Habits, probably anything by Marty Kagan, anything by Jeff Gotthelf, Lean UX and other books. Anything about design thinking would probably be off my list. And anything about design sprints would be off my list. The usual aspirologies, as I call them, methodologies that aspire to greatness but have probably done more harm than good, especially now that we've been trying them for years and we can see how poor their outcomes are. So generally, those are the books I tell people, look, you can read these if you want, but make sure you definitely have your critical thinking hat on, because I don't want anybody to be too fooled for too long by the things these books say. And if you're a curious cat, you can look up my new article called The Continuous Discovery Habits of Lean-Inspired Startups, and I forgot what it is already, but you can find it on Medium and on my LinkedIn newsletter. And I basically explain how all of these books are just copycats of each other, that everybody saw how much money Lean Startup made and they wanted to ride on that. So Lean UX came out, and then Design Sprints and Design Thinking. And all of these books pretty much say the same thing. They mostly are models for how you can go fast. Thank you for loving the hat. You can go fast, you can work from assumptions. You'll figure out later if your assumptions were true or not, which is actually not the case, because you might figure out something failed, but you might not know what or why. But a lot of these all say the same thing in that they all promote speed over quality. They typically promote not bringing specialists in to do specialized work. For example, both Lean UX says don't let researchers do research work, and then Continuous Discovery Habits pretty much says the same thing. So a lot of these books are just rehashing and copycatting each other because they want to be the popular book, and people are more comfortable. It's the confirmation bias. I want to read the book that says the thing I'm already doing is the right way to go. I don't want to read the book that says I have to change things and go through a transformation at my company and deal with change management. I want to read the book that says, if you've been going fast and you're so agile and you're so fast, well, here's another book telling you you can go fast and anybody can talk to customers and just keep going through cycles of guessing and put hypotheses first, even though that wouldn't be the scientific method. So these are the books I usually recommend against. You are welcome to read them. Just remember your critical thinking. All right, let's see what the anonymous question says. I haven't looked at it yet. And let's see. Okay, this one says, what do I think of brand perception questionnaires? I wish the person who sent that in gave me a little bit of an example, because I don't think I get a lot of these questionnaires. And so do you mean, and again, you might have to write back into the anonymous thing if you don't want to post here and have everybody see who you are, but do you mean surveys that ask people what they think of a logo, or would you recommend our company 1 to 10, 0 to 10? That's, I guess that's my I need a little bit more information, I guess, on what you mean by a brand questionnaire. But I will wait to see what someone says. Maybe an email will come in. Because I think it could be so many things, right? A brand perception questionnaire could be NPS. Anybody have a guess as to what this is, even if it's not your question? But without knowing, I'll start with a guess and maybe we'll get a clarification. Without knowing, can you repeat? Yes. I have a question here that says, what do you think of brand perception questionnaires? But I wasn't sure exactly what that person meant. I didn't know if that was like a survey about what I think of someone's logo or design, or if it's more of an NPS survey. Would you recommend our company, or satisfaction surveys? So I'm hoping this person will clarify what they mean by a brand perception questionnaire. But if I'm guessing correctly as to what this person means by a brand perception questionnaire, I would probably say that I would put that in the bucket of voice of the customer research. We're asking them something. We're going to get some sort of data back, but we may or may not understand that data. We may or may not know why people thought positively or thought negatively. And because it's a questionnaire, we're limited in knowing Gooby fears destructor. I am not on enough drugs to know what that means. Does anybody know what that means? Don't type it into Google. I don't even want to know. Good luck, Dustin, in general. People need to stop supporting Just Gooby. I have no idea what this person's talking about, so I'm just going to take this off the screen, and if any of my peeps are in, maybe this person needs to be blocked. I don't even know who Gooby is. And I'm not going to Google it. I don't want that in my browser history. Okay, about brand perception, those questionnaires that usually include questions such as, what would you do if this brand stopped existing? Okay, so that's called the Sean Ellis test, and it is something that people think can be a mark of like product market fit or brand perception. I'll be talking about that in my new product market fit course, so check it out, dcx.to. So as I'm pointing out in my course that I'm still writing, I think that it's problematic. Oh, good, we're getting comments. Keshav says, you can have user experience research to know what the users are experiencing or want to experience from brand communications, logo or maybe colors, font or pictures, but maybe an unstructured interview, not a questionnaire. So going back to the question about what would you do if this brand stopped existing? The reality is that we actually know the answer to that before we ask the question. I like to call these questions cat's urinary tract, from an early 90s TV commercial in America for cat food, where they zoom in on a guy with a cat and he says, is a cat's urinary tract health important? We know the answer to that. It's yes. So if the question is, what would you do if this brand stopped existing? Usually people would be sad for about 5 minutes, and then they would go with your competitor. They would not curl up in a ball. They would not quit their job. They would not run down the street crying, chances are. So if you have no competition, zero competition, if there's nowhere else for people to go but you, then the idea that your company stops existing might be negative or terrifying for some people because they don't have options. But if they no longer had access to your product or service and you have competitors, won't they just go there? Don't we already know the answer to this? If this no longer existed, wouldn't people find a way to replace it? So what are you asking? Again, some people think that the answer to this question shows product market fit. That if people say they would be very disappointed if you didn't exist anymore, then we must have a great product. We must be good. We must have product market fit. And I would say, do you? Because if you stopped existing, I'd be sad for 5 minutes and then I'd pick somebody else. I had that happen a few months ago when I wrote a support email to Dropbox, and they misunderstood my question and canceled my Dropbox Sign account, which is for signing documents. And I was grumpy for about 5 minutes, like, wow, that's not what I wanted here. I didn't want to cancel my account. And then I said, you know what? They just saved me $200 a year. I'll go with something else. I'll use something else. I'll use something else I'm already paying for. I'll make it work as an online signing tool. So how disappointed was I that I couldn't use Dropbox Sign anymore? I was very disappointed for 5 minutes. And then I didn't care. And then I set up a different tool to do the job. So I think we have to ask ourselves, what are we hoping to learn from that type of questionnaire or that type of question? It might be meaningless. It might not be actionable. It might not be a real measure of product market fit. So what are we really trying to learn? And is there a better way to learn that? Carly Gray says, who in the world would recommend Microsoft Teams or Word? They ask so often. Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, like, I like Microsoft Word. I wrote my books in it, #not sponsored. But if it stopped existing, I'd work in Google Docs or I'd work in Affinity Publisher. Like, okay, you know, I like Microsoft Word well enough, but if it stopped existing, I'd be upset for a few minutes and then I'd figure out some other tool to use. So I'm a loyal customer, but my world doesn't end if your system stops existing. I'll replace it. Nearly all of them can be replaced. Ader says, and I wouldn't use a survey for that kind of research. Seems like a job for Qual. Yeah, because my question would be why? If people say, I'd be very disappointed if your company stopped existing. Why? And then I want to ask the logical follow-up question. What would you do? Oh, yeah, I'd start using this guy. Ah, well. You know, so you can survey these things, but if we can't then say, why? Why do people feel that way? Or what action would they take if that actually happened? What does any of this mean? What action should we take because of it? What should we keep the same? What should we change? If we can't answer that, then your research is incomplete. Maybe the survey was a nice start, but it's not going to be the finish. You're going to need something else to help us fill in the blanks with better evidence, data, and knowledge. Thank you for that interesting question, anonymous person. So yeah, thank you. Oops, this way. Thank you. Thank you for that one. That was a good one. We've got a few more minutes together, possibly time for one more question. But if there are no other questions today, we can certainly save things for next week. And with thanks to people who came and got the ball rolling with some questions. Don't be afraid. I'm happy to answer. My opinion may not agree with yours, but I always hope that we'll put in some good critical thinking and see where we land. And I can't wait to put my air conditioning back on. It's 30 degrees at my desk. I'm gonna have to go get my fan. The other fan. This fan kind of stinks. As in, it's not good. All right, so I guess I'll end a few minutes early, and I will also turn my air conditioning back on, for which I'm sure my husband will thank me. There we go. If you heard little dingy sounds, that is my air conditioning turning on. And of course, thanks to our Patreon members, free and not free. I would love to see everybody joining there. And make sure you're part of our community, Slack or Discord, something where an algorithm is not getting between you and me. Patreon, Slack, Discord, please pick one. Hang out there. These don't cost you anything, though it's optional to pay for Patreon, thanks to the people who do. But just be somewhere where I can reach you directly without an algorithm going, nah, let's not show that to you today. So yeah, thanks again for the people who came, and I will catch everybody next week. I will play us out of here, and stay cool, people in the Northern Hemisphere. Stay warm, people in the South. Thanks. Bye.